Mm.
So I get entered into a clinical trial that happened to be starting, and that's at MD Anderson in Houston. So go shuffle at MD Anderson. I start on this trial. Some results are positive, and then one day it just kind of takes a turn, right? So, and this is like nonstop immunotherapy. Like if anyone's been through it, it's not fun. It makes you feel like crap. You lose
Mm.
your hair, you lose yourself of who you are. You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I don't even
Mm.
recognize myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but anyway, so I get put in, go into a medical coma.
Mm.
So I'm in like mid-January right now. My birthday is January 25th, for reference here. So
Okay.
people have said like during a coma, like there's some people like understand things and hear things and then come out.
Yeah.
It was like go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wake up and my parents aren't actually there. They're not in Houston. They're back in Tampa. So the doctors are like kind of what you see, but not as dramatized as that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I find out the treatment, my body, because of that, everything is shut down so it could finally focus. It's starting to respond to this trial.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward 6 to 8 months later, I'm now getting not healthy, but like the cancer is going away. And now it's just now the next battle is I need a bone marrow transplant.
Yeah.
Which like anything is you're reliant on God's grace and someone being a match on the list. So
Yeah.
um now at month literally almost on the dot at 12, I get my bone marrow transplant and things start really ticking up from there. So that next half of the year is just really cruise control on treatment for me. Like I've gone from someone who's terminal to like that is my light at the end of the tunnel. And my dad and I always used to say whenever I was down, like let's find the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like,
Okay.
let's try to find something to look forward to that's positive. And that for me was like, okay, like, what can I look forward to? Like, at this point in my life, like after treatment, like I've become a changed person. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a Christian at this point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go back to my old ways that I
Mm-hmm.
had personally. Like, but at the same time, like, what am I going back to? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like it was very much a perspective change.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into these support groups, and at one point, I decided that I wanted to climb Mount Everest because every single person who's I've never climbed mountains before, right?
Yeah.
But like every single person going through treatment, like come up with your list,
Yeah.
and that happened to be at the top of my list. I can't tell you why. So I get into remission another 6 months later, and then within 8 months of remission, where do you think I find myself? Way out of my league. So I climb Mount Rainier as like a training thing.
Yeah.
And these outfits, right, they'll just take you. They'll
Oh
just
yeah.
take the money. Doesn't
Your
matter
check,
if
the
you could
check
do.
clears. Go ahead.
Yeah. So eight
Yeah.
months later after that, I find myself at Camp 4 on Everest, like literally with a breathing tube on, like being like, hey, like, this sucks. There's a 16-hour thing from Camp 4 to the summit to back to camp to advanced base camp. And I'm like coughing up blood, and I'm like,
Oh
if
my
I,
gosh.
for some reason, I didn't think prior that like you could die. It's like I said to in a tent with three other guys, right? Four total. And we're all huddled up. And I'm like, I didn't die from cancer. And I'm not going to die going up there. Like
Yeah.
I'll wait. It's gonna. So I go back down to advanced base camp. Which, if you're not familiar with Everest, it's like the camp one, then you go through advanced base camp two, three, four, then summit, right? And you go through all these climatization climbs, right? And we completed this. And I was like, all right, I'm going down. So I don't complete that, and I very much remember thinking like I was very much a failure because I was trying to raise awareness for blood cancer
Yeah.
doing it, but like I also realized like I was not in the shape to continue,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I'd made some promises I would come back.
Yeah.
So I get there and I'm kind of sitting myself like I'm on like this just leave from work, right? Like I took a leave, like I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to go back and live my life. And I was talking with a buddy named Javier Reynoso, who I played baseball with. He played in the Royals organization. And he's
Uh-huh.
like, he was joking, but it's like, well, now you just have to go and make a baseball comeback.
There you go.
And then like a month later, I call him and I'm like, hey man, like I'm making a baseball comeback. So he's like, well, we're joking about it, and we don't think
Yeah.
it's real. But like, I'm like, hey, can you fly out here to Austin and come work with me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like, all right, let's do it. So for a couple months, he and his brother Cam Williams during the off season, who I think his
Mm-hmm.
name was Tom, played up near you, like just worked with
Mm-hmm.
me on everything, hitting everything. So I get a Pecos League spring training invite, and then I pull my hamstring, like grade,
Ah,
like bad hamstring pull, like I wasn't going to be ready for the season.
yeah.
He happened to be connected with the New York Mets, with a
Okay.
guy named Juan Loya, who is their rehab catching coach over at the complex in Port St. Lucie. But he's like, hey, like I was never a catcher. I was a third baseman. Like that's what I was
Oh,
training. And he was like, hey, we need a bullpen catcher. Do you want to catch? Up until this point, I've never caught in my life. Ever.
dude, I didn't know
I'm a
that. That's
third,
awesome.
yeah. This is the absurd part. So I'm a third base, and he's like, it's like, well, the reflexes should work. And this is like that scene in Moneyball where he's talking, what's he saying? It's like, go play first base. And it's like, it's
Yes.
easy. And the other guy goes, it's incredibly difficult. This is the most physically difficult thing I've done in my life. So for a week, I have a week to kind of get ready. And I get a pitching machine and I'm like, 100 miles an hour, let's just crank it up.
Oh my gosh.
So for like that week, I'm like, just get 100 miles. So I get there to the Mets, and these are double A guys, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
this is
legit.
major league
Yes.
stuff without
Uh-huh.
sometimes not major league consistency, but most of them are, right?
Yeah.
And it's I get there, and my first day goes horribly, and I'm yeah, back there, I was confident beforehand. It's just like fastball I could catch, but then curveball, clank, clank,
Yep.
clank.
Oh,
So I'm
dude.
sitting here humiliated, and the pitchers are laughing, right? And you can't help, but you have to laugh at it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the only way I get through. And I talk with Loyo, and he's like, just stick back there. So at one point, we're warming up in a game in my second game, and we got this guy named Wilkin Ramos, who's like this highly touted prospect, and he throws 97 from here, like, and he's
Okay.
a 6'6" guy. So
Oh
he's coming
shoot.
to the plate, and all
Yep.
the balls are doing this. And
Yep.
I'm thinking, and like he stops because he's like, I don't know if I'm going to kill him. Like he told Loyo that, like
Yeah.
I'm worried. So we go through this whole adversity of like, all right, like, and this is what kind of defined me as a person, and like what I hope to
Mm.
give other people is that I'm here just getting hit by baseballs in the chest at one point. Like,
Mhm.
in fact, I took one to the max to the point where a guy
Oh.
was like, "Are you okay?" And I
Yeah.
probably took a concussion at one point from that. Like, and I said, like, I'm not going to fail at this. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to get better. So I would start going to the stadium before any of the players, and I'd
Mm.
work with the guy, and I get a machine like, let's learn how to catch essentially big league guys from scratch, and just kept working and working and working at it, right? But this happened to be like another thing where I'd be like, it's a miracle to kind of pull it off, right?
Mhm.
Like going from scratch and doing it. And in 2 months, you couldn't tell the difference. And
Wow.
they were telling me like, hey, like we would never know that you were not like a catcher with us, actually.
Yeah.
So I got on a framing and catching analytics, but like funny enough, through all that, our team chaplain, we are going over the book of Isaiah, and a
Okay.
verse this is my favorite Bible verse in the world, which is Isaiah 40:31, which is like, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength, and they'll soar on wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary, and they'll walk and not be faint, right? And it's just like, even through that adversity, like all my strength, like most people are just going to quit at that, right? Like it hurts to
Mhm.
get hit by 95+ mile an hour
Oh,
baseballs, right?
more
And then
more than
do it for a
hurts.
living. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
more than hurts.
but I wanted to quit, like the human, and I was just like, I trust God. I will rely on strength through Him, right? Like,
Mm.
and just because you rely on strength through God doesn't mean that your dreams will come true, right?
Mm.
It's like it's such a misunderstood thing. People are like, well, if Jesus is real, then like, why does X, Y, Z happen?
Mhm.
It's part of His plan, right? And it's part of
Mhm.
like the faith aspect. But through that, like, it just led me to being able to perform at that level, right? Like, and then
Mhm.
I realized at one point during it, like baseball was going to be my avenue to basically like spread like hope and
Mhm.
like the love of Christ through my story. Um,
Mhm.
and that's why I've tried to continue doing it to this day. But just like the adversity right through that, like I only could rely on God. No one else in the world could understand what I was going through with that.
Mhm.
Um, and it just became this huge thing, and I made friends for life through that. And I essentially chose to leave affiliated like
Mhm.
through this last offseason to go
Mhm.
do Cosmic because of the impact that I could have in that organization through playing. And one of the great things about Cosmic Baseball is we have a prayer circle at the end of every game. They're not afraid from an organization standpoint to say, hey, we are a Christian organization.
That's
Like, it
awesome.
doesn't mean we won't accept and entertain people who
For
aren't.
sure.
But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the Chris Martin, Jason Dean, who are like the big players and or not big players, but like the founder and the director of entertainment, very much boldly like we proclaim faith, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
we are Jesus freaks. Doesn't mean
yeah.
every player may necessarily be it, but from an
Totally.
organization, we want to do good through that, right?
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
want to spread that word. So that's kind of like my journey and how I've gotten here. And how
Man.
that cancer has really changed my life, I would say, for the better to kind of
Jeez,